Hello my chess friends and welcome to another game analysis. We are in the round 7 of the Grand Chess Tour in Zagreb, and this is one of the most exciting games from that round. We have with the white pieces Jan Nepomniachtchi and with the black pieces world champion Magnus Carlsen. Jan opens the game with e4, Magnus plays his best weapon, so he plays Sicilian with c5, and then we have knight to f3. Magnus goes with the knight on c6, looking for Sveshnikov variation, but Jan prepared knight to c3. We have e5. So right now we can see that the Magnus is controlling square d4 very strongly with the 2 pawns, so white cannot go with the move d4, and he played bishop to c4. So we have g6, d3, and then h6. So for Jan, idea here is to transpose the knight from the square f3 to e3. That is not easy to do. So one of the lines which he can choose to transpose the knight from f3 to e3 is to go with the knight or d2, f1, and then e3, or the second line which he chose in this game. So he played h4, then we have d6, after that h5, wants to open h but Magnus pass with the move g5, and then Jan goes with the knight on h2 with the idea to go with on g4 and then on e3. So we have bishop to g7, knight goes to g4, and then knight from g8 to e7, and finally knight to e3. So idea with that knight is to completely control the square d5, and also he's controlling f5 right now, but the main idea is to control square d5, and he will put one of his knights on the square d5. Magnus played castle, we have bishop to d2, and then king to h8, preparing his f-pawn to advance on the square f5. We have g4 from the Jan, he wants to completely lock the king side, and then rook to b8, looking for the advance of the b-pawn on b5. So Jan also wants to lock that side with the move a4, but it is time for a knight to go on a d4, and then a knight to d5. Knight capture on d5, and then knight capture on d5. So both of them are playing with a very good knight in the middle of the board, but we'll see which one will stay there. It is clear that white knight on the square d5 cannot be attacked by the pawn on the square c6 or squares e6 because they already passed these squares, but we have pawn on the c2 which can advance on the c3 and kick out the knight from the square d4. So he cannot stay on the d4 forever. We have knight to e6 immediately, looking for the square f4, which is a very good square for that knight, because white cannot attack that knight with any of his pawns. f3, and then knight to f4. We have queen to b1. He played queen to b1 with the idea to transpose the queen on the queen side, because that queen cannot be useful on the king side, which is already locked in with all these pawns here. So bishop to e6 was played, and then queen to a2. After that, queen goes to d7. We have a rook to g1. He's supporting the g4 pawn because Magnus tried to sacrifice his bishop on the square g4. After that, we have b6, and then bishop to c3, bishop capture on a d5, bishop recapture on a d5, and this knight on f4 stays very strong here. So the only thing that white can do with that knight is to capture him with his dark color bishop. Magnus played a6, then we have bishop to d2. Idea of that move, of course, is to idea of that move is to capture on f4. So queen goes to e7, and then we have rook to f1, b5, a capture b5, and a capture b5. As we can see in this position, a file is the only one open file on the board, and white is controlling that file. So first he wants to move the king on a safe place, and he goes with the king on f2. We have c4. That is a very brave move of the Magnus. So he wants to open the queen side. He is looking for a counter attack on that side because white is already controlling a lot of things on the queen side, like the very good diagonal with the light squares, and a file, which is the only one opened. And that move c4 was very sharp and very risky move. Actually, here it was very good line if Jan captured on c4, which he didn't play in the game. But let's see that what happened. If he captured on c4, then Magnus will recapture, and if the bishop captured that free pawn, we can expect one move which will try to control the c file. So that is the move rook from f8 to c8, and with the two strong rooks here, black will be looking for a counter attack on the queen side. But that did not happen in the game, and after c4 it looks like Jan was afraid of that line, and he first captured on f4. Magnus recaptured with e pawn, and then we have rook from a1 to d1, and Magnus continued with his pawns, and he played f5, and this is the position where Jan played his main mistake in this game, and he captured this pawn with the g4 pawn. So he captured with the g4 pawn, that opens one very strong attack. But now let's see the line. If he captured with the e pawn, that will force him to give to receive some checks, and after queen e3, which is a check to king, he can go with the king on g2. If Magnus continue with the checks, so he play queen e2, and that will attack the king, and also he's attacking the pawn on c2, but white is already pawn up, so that is not a problem for him. If the Jan moves his king on one of the three squares which he can choose, square g1, h1 or h3, it is all good on the board. So if he goes on h1, then black cannot do anything special on the board. So for example, if he captures the pawn on c2, then white will capture on c4, and if he recaptures on c4, queen captures c4, queen capture on b2. Material is equal, but it is slightly better for white because he's controlling a lot of things on the board. So let's go back in this position where Magnus play f5, and here Jan make the main mistake, so he captured with the g pawn. After that, Magnus continued with his strong attack, so he pushed the g4 pawn. That will open the diagonal for the queen on h4. And here Jan played d4, completely ignoring the things on the king side. And queen goes to h4, give a check to king. So king goes to e2, and then queen give another check on h2. So here Jan played the move rook to f2, and after move g capture f3. In this position, Jan resigned. So he has no moves to play, but let's see what he can try. If he capture on f3 with his king, that will result with a very bad thing, because queen capture h5, it is check to king, and the rook is hanging on the square d1. So for example, if he capture on f4, then queen can capture the rook to d1. Or if he doesn't capture on f3, if he goes rook to e1, then here is the move queen to g1. It is a check, so if king goes d2, then the rook on f2 is hanging. Or otherwise, if he tried this way with the rook on f1, then queen goes to e3, and that would be a checkmate. So in this position, after Magnus capture on f3 with his pawn from g4, that was the last move that they play in this game. Here Jan resigned. I hope that this game was instructive for you, and if you enjoyed this analysis, feel free to subscribe and let me know in the comment section below what you think about this game. I hope you enjoyed, and see you in the next game analysis. Bye bye.